On October 1, 1949, Mao Zedong stepped to a cluster of microphones in Beijing, formally declaring the establishment of the People's Republic of China. To anyone watching, he projected total, undeniable control. The images broadcast from Tiananmen Square that day showed a vast, highly organized spectacle. This display projected the image of a fully formed, intimidating global superpower to the world. But that image was largely a fabrication. The victorious communist military was actually a battered, ragtag guerrilla force. They lacked standardized equipment, carried mismatched weapons, and possessed little formal training outside of active combat. And the Civil War wasn't over. They still faced an existential threat from Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists, who held territory in the south, controlled the skies, and enjoyed heavy financial and military backing from the United States. Mao had exactly one afternoon to accomplish a critical objective: deter further conflict by convincing his domestic enemies, and the watching world, that his military had evolved into an industrialized, unstoppable machine. The communist leadership lacked the actual hardware to project dominance. Instead, they relied on high-stakes, improvised political theater to invent that dominance on the spot. Creating that illusion required solving a mountain of logistical hurdles. The ground troops, like the 199th Infantry Division, had plenty of combat experience but almost zero formal parade discipline. To look the part of a professional military, they were ordered to rapidly study and adopt British parade drills on the fly. Then there was the weapon problem. Their armory was a chaotic mix of captured hardware. To solve this, commanders stripped all available units of their best weapons and exclusively reallocated captured Japanese Type 38 rifles to the marching division, creating a unified wall of steel for the cameras. The armor division faced an even trickier physical limitation. Driver Dong Laifu was assigned to lead the formation in a captured nationalist tank, which was tasked with leading the armored square. The tank's forward periscope created a dangerous blind spot alongside the adjacent tank. To fix it, Dong rotated the periscope 90 degrees outward. This locked his sight on the adjacent tank's flank, maintaining the line while driving completely blind forward. Through thousands of these tiny, duct-tape solutions and physical hacks on the ground, the soldiers managed to project the macro illusion of a highly polished, industrialized fighting force. But the greatest threat was in the sky. Nationalist forces had recently bombed airfields in the Beijing suburbs, making an aerial attack on the dense, vulnerable crowd during the ceremony a terrifying probability. In response, General Ni Rongjin issued an unprecedented and dangerous order. The few available planes would fly directly over the millions of people in the square, fully armed, ready to intercept incoming bombers. This introduced a secondary numbers problem. The People's Liberation Army only possessed 17 functional planes, nowhere near enough to project the image of a global superpower. This map reveals their bold aerial deception. The first 9 planes passed over the tower, disappeared, and swept behind the city. Circling back, they secretly attached to the rear of the formation, converting 17 planes into 26 on camera. The looping trick worked perfectly. None of the foreign journalists noticed the deception. Instead, they sent dispatches reporting that the communists had materialized a formidable air force overnight. All of this military theater served as the opening act for the climax of the day, Mao Zedong's public address. For decades, the full audio of this speech was missing, until documentary filmmakers recently dug into the archives to uncover the lost, uncut recording. The tapes revealed a startling reality. Mao spoke in a rural Hunan dialect so thick it was effectively unintelligible to the general public. This unbridgeable linguistic gap is so severe that native Hunan translators today struggle to pick apart the syllables and decode what he was saying. On that day, the vast majority of the cheering crowd, and the world listening on the radio, had absolutely no idea what Mao was saying. But the truth of the day was quickly smoothed over. The only crew allowed to shoot color film of the ceremony was a visiting team from the Soviet Union. Shortly after the event, their film reels were mysteriously destroyed in a hotel fire. The loss of that raw film left history with only curated, silent black and white images, permanently sealing the pristine myth Mao intended to create. The waking giant of China didn't arrive with overwhelming, tangible military might. It was achieved entirely through the unmatched power of political spectacle and the successful projection of an illusion.